Well, hello there, and welcome to the guitar program, which brings us up this week to lesson number 6 in your booklets. Now, last week we started our process of learning to read music, and you learned the open strings of the guitar, which I hope by today are thoroughly memorized. Today we're going to have a very practical lesson. You're going to be playing almost all the way through, and what we're going to do is we're going to learn just a couple of frets, the first and third fret on the top string and on the second string. And we're going to make some duets with the benefit of those notes and the open strings that we already know. So, let's get ourselves quickly in tune so that we can get to work. Bottom E. Now, of course, you know the letter names of these notes. Then we come to the A. Then the fourth string, your D. G on the third string. Second string B, and finally a top string E. And there we are. Now, two quick questions before we get to work. That have come in. One is on the question of nails again. Some of you are tending, because you've discovered that you play with the nails, you're tending to grow very long nails on the basis that if some nail is good, more nail must have to be better. Unfortunately, it's not really so. The longer nail makes it harder to travel across the string, and you're liable to get caught and hooked on the string if you have too long a nail. The other point is that, of course, the longer the nail, the more accident-prone it is, and the more liable you are to break a nail, which is, of course, a minor disaster for a guitarist. So keep the nails, as far as you're able to, as you look at your palm, just a very, very small sliver over the top. And no more than that. What you really want is the least you can get away with. Now, talking about the least gets us to the left hand, and I never really told you this, but the left hand, you want to cut away the nail as far as you can reasonably go, because it does nothing but get in the way. As you play, you want to be on the pad of the finger, and so there's nothing worse than the feeling of a long fingernail gouging its way into the fingerboard. The other question is that of buzzes. We dealt with clicks, now buzzes. The two principal reasons for the nasty buzzing sounds that you sometimes get are, first of all, that the finger is lifting just before the note has concluded. So you play the note, and as you lift it, you hear a little zzzt as it comes up. Or the other reason, of course, is if you're badly placed in the fret. We did mention this before, that if you go to the back of the fret instead of the front, that there you get that nasty sound again. So the secret is, don't feel you have to press terribly hard. Get the finger right up to the fret and leave it on for the full duration of the note. And then you're absolutely foolproof. It has to sound right. Now, we're going to start with the first string, and we're going to launch out onto the frets. Technically, there's nothing difficult to do at all. We're just going to play single lines with rest strokes. But the thing you have to do now is to recognize which note it is and the duration of the note. So as we look at the card, there's your open string E, and there is your F at the first fret, and the G at the third fret. And at this point, that's absolutely all you have to worry about. Now, you know the open E already, So over the other two notes, you've got a 50% chance of being right, whatever you do. F at the first fret and G at the third fret. So we'll go straight into an exercise now and see if we can get a little experience with those three notes. This is number 6 in your booklets. Now, first thing, notice at the left-hand end of the staff, the letter C. That's in fact just an abbreviation for a 4/4 time signature, meaning 4 quarter note beats in the bar. Since it is so common, they call it common time, and you'll quite frequently see that C used as an abbreviation. All right, now get ready with your top string, and I'll just give you a count, and let's do it and see what happens. You ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's not really very difficult, is it? You just have to remember that you've got to recognize two things, the note and its time value. You had the 4 count one that time, the whole note, and otherwise just quarter notes and half notes that you're now, I think, getting a little bit used to. All right, let's make a duet out of it. Let's play it with some accompaniment and see how you get on this time. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. So, shall we do another one? Let's. Let's go on to exercise 7. See what we can do with that one. Same notes. The only difference here is we're in 3/4 time, and so give you a count of 3 before you start, and let's see if we can do it. We'll do it in unison together, first time. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You notice I keep counting while we're playing, and that keeps you in rhythm, but I also want to give you the idea of making a habit of this, because I do it for my benefit as well as for yours. The only thing is, most of the time when I do it, I would do it silently. But it's a great mistake to think that only beginners count. It's one of the popular misapprehensions, actually. In fact, the people who really count like fury are professional musicians, because they have to be in time. And the only difference, as I say, is that they do it mentally rather than out loud. But the more you can get the habit of counting out your beats like this, the better you will understand the music and actually propel yourself through it by counting. You'll find it really helps a lot. All right, let's try this one now with the accompaniment. See if we can play it really nicely this time. Ready on the G. 1, 2, 3. Good. Well, flushed with our success, I think we're going to proceed right on to the second string. Why not? Because, again, we're only going to have to learn probably 2 new notes. You already know the open string, the B. So let's look at the chart for that. Now, you see your second string open, the B, the familiar one. And all we have to learn is the C at the first fret. Do it with me. It's always a little better if you do something to plant it in your memory. So play the C, the first fret. And now play the D at the third fret. Got it? Got to reach out a little bit for that D. I don't know why, but some people seem to find it a little more of a challenge. So when you play the D, don't let your hand get hunched up. Just reach right out for it. All right, now, as always, let's just proceed ahead and do an exercise to fix it in our minds. Are you ready? Count of 3 before you start. 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. You may think I sabotaged you by taking you up onto the first string open, but the limitations of tune with just 3 notes are such that I felt I had to have 1 more note. So let's try that one again. Wasn't too difficult anyway, was it? Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. One more quick run on that one for good measure. All right, back to the beginning. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Good, well done. Now, while we're playing around with melodies and rest strokes, it's just something I'd like to show to you about tone production. In your standard position, playing over the end of the sound hole, you get a fairly round sound out of the string. But if you move back towards the bridge, you get a progressively more metallic sound until right by the bridge you have a very strongly metallic sound. And moving the other way, up the fingerboard, you get a progressively rounder sound until you're actually playing at the halfway point between the bridge and either the open string or where you're playing the fret. So this is an effect which we can use to make contrasts, so that, and sometimes we want an echo effect or something like that, and we have the full range between going and it gives us a capability of a great deal of variety, and I think it's something you can probably have quite a bit of fun with, just trying out to see the full range of sounds that you can get. Now we're going to get back to our practical work, and we're going to put the 2 strings together that we've learned the notes of, first and second strings, and we're going to do our final piece here where we try and get all the notes right on both those strings. And let's see what degree of accuracy you can manage now. The exercise is number 9 in your booklets. Now we've got 3/4 time, and because we're crossing strings and have a lot to remember, I'm going to have a very, very slow first run. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now up to the D. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And the same again. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. All right, one more together, I think, in unison. A little faster this time. And this time, I'm not going to count for you. You see what you can do by yourselves and just follow me in terms of playing it, but I'm not going to count. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Good. Now we're going to do it properly as a duet. You'll be on your own, and I'm going to play the accompaniment this time. Through the week, I want you to work really very hard on these, because we'll be proceeding on next week to the third string. And of course, as we accumulate more notes and do slightly more elaborate tunes, the value of your preparatory work comes to the forefront. If you've kept up and managed to learn each string, then you're adding only a small amount when it comes to the next lesson. But if you miss a lesson and suddenly have to learn them all in one lump, then obviously it's that much more difficult. So the more practice you can get now on these, the better. All right, let's play it together now as a duet. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. And there we are. So that's all we have time to do together today. But I want you to do quite a lot this week, because what you do at this point to reinforce what we've done in the lesson is tremendously important. And I want to be sure that as I move on to new notes and new time values and so on, that everything we have done is very firmly in mind. Now, what I'd like you to do is this. First of all, I'd like you to be absolutely sure that your notes on the E, F, and G, and the B, C, and D are absolutely firmly in your mind. And as far as recognizing the notes, that's one part of the battle. The other part of the battle is obviously playing them rhythmically in time. And for that, of course, the secret is this counting. Now, you've heard me doing that today as we went along. And I'd like you to try this yourself, and don't feel foolish when you count out loud, because, in fact, it's the way that all musicians use to measure out their notes. So when you come to do an exercise, and you see, for instance, a half note and a quarter note in it, don't just say, oh, right, now there's my F, and that's a half note, and now I'm going to find the quarter note. Yes, there's the quarter note, and that's that one. That is part of the battle, but only a part. What is much better is, say it's in 3/4 time. You see your 3/4 at the beginning of the line. You count one set of 3 for yourself, and then you count like this. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. And you've got the half note and the quarter note, and you've done it perfectly. Now, it seems as if I'm asking you to do 2 things at once, asking you to count and play, and in reality I am. But the result of it is actually the counting, you'll find, sort of propels you along in your reading. It isn't something that slows you down by being more difficult. In the long run, you'll find it actually helps you. Now, next week, we'll be doing another string, although it's very easy because we only have 1 extra note to learn. But that opens up quite a few new tunes that you will recognize at that point. So we're really getting on at this stage. And all I'm really asking you to do is to reinforce everything that we've done now. You've got not only the pieces we did today, but you've got other pieces on the 1st and 2nd strings in your booklets. And I'd like you to feel very free to experiment with the other ones, because it isn't quite as easy when you come across something completely new, and that'll serve to test you a little bit and see how well you know them. We talked earlier on about the fingernails, and one thing I forgot to tell you actually is the answer to the question, what happens if I break a nail? Well, it's not a disaster. The best thing of all I can suggest for you at this stage is simply to file all the other nails, I think, down. If you've got a broken nail, file it as round and as even as you possibly can, and then just file the other ones down so that as they gradually grow out, they'll grow out together. What you don't want is a great long nail adjacent to one very short, broken down one. Now, later on, I may tell you about a form of artificial nail that you can glue onto the finger, but I think that's much too complicated for you at the moment and not really very necessary. Right. I'd like to play a piece for you now before we finish, and it's again a saraband. I did one for you before by Robert de Visé, who was the court musician to Louis XIV. This time it's by the great J.S. Bach. Saraband's an interesting sort of dance. It, at one time, was banned by the church in Spain as being scurrilous and lascivious and having a bad effect on the people. And it's very hard to understand why when you hear the saraband as it has developed in the 17th century, when it has become a slow, rather beautiful contrast to the quicker dances of the Baroque suite. And it shows that by that period, these dances that you'll hear mentioned, like minuet and so on, weren't so much danced as they'd become a musical piece, and just the name survives and something of the flavor of the original dance. Right, now this one I'd like to play for you. The title, Saraband in B minor by Bach.